wela'lin. Wait, I try to do this without glasses. It's very sunny in here, which is good. Mantaqpegitg. That means how are you? This is beautiful. That's good. Say it's okay. Anything beyond that, mesque. But the more you continue to go with wantaqpegitg, calm flow, better off you're going to be. There's a lot going on. I think a lot of us are learning how interconnected everything is at this point. Be it because you're dealing directly with what's going on now, or you're actually watching how much this is all interconnected, how much the way we engage with one another dictates what happens to us. So, firstly, I wanted to say, belated ajipuna, happy birthday to Annie Mae, who is a Mi'kmaq freedom fighter that died in the 70s, far too young, because of what the country, the U.S. is like, and what I assume most other countries are like. And by U.S. I also mean Canada, and I also mean all of the Americas, while I'm at it. Annie Mae is a ancestor of mine, in that we are both humans and we are both Mi'kmaq, but that even if we weren't, it wouldn't make me relate to her and everything every MMIW has been through any less. But that's because of the life that I've lived and how I've looked before I've looked like this, and the privilege I've had of being able to be many, 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 many people in my history. So, with that said, I'd like to think that from this point out, with Stargate coming, and I hope to see you all there on 4/4, and there will be a link below, it's free. You're not actually physically going anywhere. You're able to stop and get out of this stress moment and actually reconnect with who you are, with your soul. And you can do it through any belief system you want. The whole point is that you just pray and meditate along with everybody else, however you're meant to. But there are guided ones, if that'll help you, to help you get back to a grounded point, so that we can actually engage with CV19 in a way that allows people to heal, and beyond just this disease, in a way that ends racism, bigotry, and all other ways that humans and other relations oppress one another. I say humans because right now humans are at the top of that chain. And that's all things that will get talked about after we've engaged with no longer running around and trying to grow when we're sick. Now, no, construction workers are still out and about in Jersey City. There are other videos I have coming up soon that are less heavy than these. I would have had them up already, but I've been having to respond to the fact that people still aren't listening to what life is telling them, what their creator is telling them. So, in a second, I'm going to stop running my mouth and I'm just going to quote things. But firstly, Jersey City, your alternate side parking that you want to be doing on the 6th. I was hoping yesterday on the 1st you would say that that was April Fool's joke, but it's because today is Tabu, right? It's the 2nd, right? Yesterday was now. Yeah, that's it. Well then, if you're so intent on being that prideful about how clean you are when your people are trying to not have one another contract this deadly disease, which has made our country the highest now in the world still, and New York City has surpassed Italy. New York City itself has surpassed Italy as a country in infected. I would like to think that you're not going to take this asp and put it to yourself and murder more of your own people. And I would like to think once again that you will start informing people of the ghetto of what's actually going on. to my wantaqpegitg, to my yellow, white, black, and red relations of all kinds. And I can list more colors if you want. We can even go into, let's see if I can say this right because I'm still learning it. Nutlut, Hamuch, Gray, Sulil, Smoky while we're at it. Let's do some silver and copper too. To all my people and to all my relations on my Pukalatamuch, I say we do as the Hamptons did with Shinnecock, because they handled it much better than anyone has handled Wet'suwet'en or anything else, because when the Hamptons saw that they were about to destroy indigenous lives and indigenous land again, mindlessly, once they were educated and they listened, they gave land to the Shinnecock. There's more left to go, but that's your model, and there will be a link to that below as well. That is in Long Island, and so I'm amused, and this is the last synchronicity I go into before just reading awesome names of people who have died thus far, who didn't need to. Not yet, but if we can stop and look at the way that we have treated one another and what we are capable of letting go of en masse, and just start apologizing. And if you're not ready to accept those apologies, just say you need a little bit more time, and people can give you that space and those boundaries. But that's what we need to do, all of us. There's going to be a lot of apologizing, there's going to be a lot of guilt, and there's going to be a lot of embarrassment. But I can promise you right now, your embarrassment is far less than more people dying to this disease or to one another. So on that note, I first say, Namaltis, we'll see you around, and Mesquay, that it happened, when and how it did, to Monica Diamond, who was a trans woman that died at 34 in an ambulance during this epidemic. Not because of the disease, but because they were murdered in that ambulance. They were 34. To Florena, and if I pronounce any of these wrong, please correct me. I like being corrected. To Florena Borjas, 59, who was another trans woman, and if I'm wrong on the terminology and it's theys, let me know. She did so much to protect and ensure the safety of her people, trans sex workers, who have rights more than you people give them. Marginalized individuals. To another Nuji people group, because I believe that all of these were Nuji people group, which are both songbirds and people that whistle blow. To Li Wen Liang, who also was 34 and was the first doctor in China to say something was wrong and was told to be quiet by his government and is now dead. And to Jordan Kelly in New York City, a doctor in their 40s, I don't know their exact age, who died in New York City treating people in the hospitals. It doesn't get any less emotional. You just learn to keep breathing through it. And the reason I'm prepared for these things, sadly, but this is my path, is because of what I've lived through and what I've watched people live through and die from in this country firsthand. Many, many, many times over. And by people, I mean all my relations, not just humans. Perhaps this is from F.C. Happold's Mysticism. This is a book that we found, because we find so many books, and by find I mean on the ground typically. Dante's Paradiso. Triple circles of dazzling light, love et dwarfa, that moves the sun and other stars. Glohochwich. I don't think I covered this properly, and so I'm going to stop for a second. Glohochwich. To my Mi'kmaq and to my Elnu and to all my people, I brought up trans folk in that first bit, POC trans folk, indigenous, possibly, I know at least with one, indigenous trans folk. You have two spirits and other folk of all kinds all around you. Janasi, I suggest you start treating them like the wampum, like the kiji pitum tanachanaiklo, like the $1 million plus that they are. Because they're going to lead you through this in ways you don't know. They are your which they are your stars. Ignorance of something surpasses his selfhood, awe and self-abasement, lose himself within. How can it be known? To name it is presumption, and it can only be spoken of in negatives. It is not this, not that. It is the fathomless abyss, the desert of the Godhead, the wilderness, where no one is at home. Yet in the negotiation, I'm sorry, Miss Gay. It's all part of the same thing. Yet in the negation, there is a vast affirmation. The dark silence is filled with heavenly music. In the nothingness, everything is contained. It is a lightsome dark and a rich naught. The austere, still wilderness where no one is at home is the long sought for home. And hidden in the dazzling obscurity of the secret silence is the garden of lilies where the soul is united with the beloved. All things I then forgot. My cheek to him, or to them, who for my coming came. All ceased, and I was not, leaving my cares and shame among the lilies and forgetting them. Vishnu Sama, and I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, Pankatantra. Escape. So I guess we're going to here. The feeling heart, fate burdened, the judgment of even the great goes with twisted, crooked gait. Though caught in the throes of calamities, if a person's wits do not forsake him, he will safely cross to the far shore and enjoy supreme happiness more. Because we now have to be of one mind, all of us acting together to carry away this net. If we err in this by not acting in unison, we shall never be able to carry it off. In the absence of a concerted effort, death will be the certain outcome. As it is wisely said, single-bellied, double-throated, the poor Baharunda birds, correct me if it's wrong, eating one thing and another, so too will the disunited. Because if we keep going like this, what ends up happening is what has happened to all of us at some point or another. And we're learning more and more about it, and I'm trying to find the place where you are building dwellings, where you are now building a fort, where you want, as it were, to enthrone yourself, this land of which you wish to make yourself now absolute master. This land belongs to me. I have come from it. As certainly as the grass, it is the very place of my birth and my dwelling. This land belongs to me, the Indian, Elnu, literally to me, the human person. That's all of you that are human. Yes, I swear it is God who's given me to be my country forever. Show me where I, the Indian, will lodge. You drive me out. Where do you want me to take refuge? You have taken almost all of this land in all of its extent. Nothing remains to me except Chi Buk Tuk. You envy me even this morsel. Your residence at Port Royal does not cause me great anger because you see I have left you there at peace for a long time. But now you force me to speak out by the great theft you've perpetrated against me. I salute you, my lord. written at Port Toulouse 5 days before St. Michael's Day. The Mi'kmaq elders and chiefs of to the governor at Halifax, quoted by the Abbé Millard in the letter to the Abbé Dufras, 18 October 1749. Archives du Séminaire de Quebec in Le Canada Français, 1888. I-1719 English translation Meske, in Mi'kmaq and Colonists by L.F.S. Upton, 1979, 201 to 202. There's another story in there for another time I thought we were getting to today, but I guess not yet. And that was The Old Man Told Us by Ruth Homestead. I'm sorry, Ruth Holmes Whitehead, SK. And then Almanac of the Dead by Leslie Marmon Silko. And if you have never read Leslie Marmon Silko, I suggest you start with Ceremony is where I started, and all of her work. Along with all this work, but all of her work is amazing. And this book is beautiful. I'm going to read just the 4 directions in here to start. So, Huatape, yellow. Tucson, Arizona, home to an assortment of speculators, confidence men, embezzlers, lawyers, judges, police, and other criminals, as well as addicts, pushers since the 1880s and the Apache Wars. Wapeg, white, the Indian connection. 60 million Native Americans died between 1500 and 1600. The defiance and resistance to things European continue unabated. The Indian wars have never ended in the Americas. I agree with that completely. Native Americans, Elno, indigenous folk, and this includes First Nation Canadians and up and down the Americas and all kinds, acknowledge no borders. They seek nothing less than the return of all tribal lands. Don't get me wrong, we had our own form of borders before you got here, just like we had roads and governments and all those things that you like to pretend we didn't have. We had crosses here before anyone got here, because just like anywhere else, we've all had very similar backgrounds. But when we were taken apart and shuffled all over the place, all over the world, as slaves and refugees, and warriors and mothers and fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, children, you name it, we kind of learned a thing, which is we can work together against greater evils, despite the things that we have done to one another in the past. I say that as somebody that is guided by Annie Mae in everything I do. So I try to do otherwise. It never goes well for me, because that's me working from my own ego instead of for listening to everything. I still have my times, everyone does, and I apologize for it, and I learn from it. Machtewe, which is black, depending on some circles, and the colors are different in so many circles. Depending on some circles, this can also be muskunamu, which is blue, which is all the emotions that need to be shed. When Europeans arrived, the Maya, Aztec, Inca cultures had already built great cities and vast networks of roads. And for those of you that are like, those aren't black people, I suggest you go look at some pictures and drawings from history of how dark people here used to be. How dark my ancestors used to be. Not even that far back. Ancient prophecies foretold the arrival of Europeans in the Americas. The ancient prophecies also foretell the disappearance of all things European. That is not decolonization, it is the removal of the harm. Decolonization, in my opinion, this is after being somebody that wanted to decolonize for a long time, that still leaves the harm. An Almanac of the Dead. Megway. Red. 500-year map. through the decisive